Welcome to What Do You Say, the podcast that peels back the layers of remarkable individuals to reveal their extraordinary sides and their incredible lives. I'm your host, Frank Termini, and I'm absolutely thrilled to embark on this journey with you. The podcast name's What Do You Say, but that's not how it's said.
How do you say it?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
You got it. We say.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Do You Say? My name's Andrew Termini. With me, as always, is my brother and your host, Frank Termini. If you like what we're doing here, please go out there, like, subscribe, leave us a review, and remember to turn on those notifications so you can be updated every time we upload some new content.
Johnny O today, buddy.
Johnny O.
Let's go.
Jonathan O'Reilly.
Yes, sir.
We got associate. Well, you're the associate pastor.
You know what? I've got a few different titles. My official title is executive pastor, but associate pastor, it's kind of the same, one and the same.
I like the executive part.
I like executive.
Yeah, we're going to call the executive pastor.
There we go.
So grew up here. Me and Michelle had this argument. I lost. I was so upset because for some reason, I thought you played at Platte County for Chip Sherman.
I sure wish I would have, because I would have had some state championships that I could still be bragging about. But no, I went to Smithville. I was a Warrior, not a St. Pius Warrior, but a Smithville Warrior.
Yes.
So Chip Sherman is assistant coaching at Pius this year.
Oh, he is?
Okay.
Man, what a blessing to have that guy.
He's incredible. Yeah.
He's number one, he may be the sweetest man you've ever met in your entire life.
He's a great dude.
Yep.
He may be the sweetest man you've ever met. You know what? I got to get him on here.
You really should.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just the sweetest guy in the world. He's so humble and so knowledgeable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is so knowledgeable.
And his boys were studs.
I got to play against Zach.
Zach's.
So Zach was a bowling ball.
Yeah.
He went, I think, up to Northwest.
He played at Northwest with Chris Termini.
Yeah.
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 And I think he may still hold the rushing record.
I could believe that.
He was something different, man. He was built different.
I wish.
I think he may have shared the backfield with either Sheldon Cook, who I coached, was a Necco Raider,
Yeah.
or that Xavier Oman, who was that kid from Nebraska.
Oman was up there. You're right. Yep, it was him.
So here, I got to meet Xavier Oman. He coached a basketball team that we played against his son's Frankie George's age.
Okay.
And this guy is a monster of a man. I mean, just tree trunk legs, right? And I remember, Reed Kirby, his son Jack goes to Pius, and Reed was the guard for all four of those teams. So they went to they played in the national championship 4 years in a row. They didn't win any of them, but they played in all 4 years. And so Reed is who introduced me to him, and I'm like, I don't know how that guy didn't go D1 or wasn't able to. And he did bounce around in the league for a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, God, what a monster!
Yep.
Just huge. So you went to Smithville.
I did. Yep.
Which we might patch in a photo of
There you go.
J.O.'s high school football.
The frosted tips.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I bet you pulled it off back then.
QB1.
Yeah.
Played a little bit of football, basketball.
So wait, you were a quarterback.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I think there may be a couple records. I'm still holding on for dear life. So I played varsity quarterback 2 years at Smithville.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then you went to MU?
Went to Mizzou. Yeah. Went down to Mizzou. And I had a few opportunities to play NAIA, a couple things. Just decided I wanted to go to Mizzou.
So we're like Jewel, Benedictine, those schools?
Yep. There was a school up. What's the school up in
Culver Stockton?
Culver Stockton was there. Now they were looking at maybe moving me to the other side, playing a little cornerback, something like that.
Like a Doug Flutie.
Yeah, I'm all of like 5'9", so I mean, I just but yeah, I decided to go to Mizzou. Went down there and
Didn't want to play in college.
I didn't want to play enough.
Yeah,
I didn't want to play enough. Looking back, it's kind of like maybe should have at least tested the waters.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, went to Mizzou, And there's other reasons I went to Mizzou as well. May or may not have been, chasing a relationship. And
Never a good idea.
we've all, when you're 18, 19, you're making the best decisions. Right?
Absolutely, the best. I've never made better decisions.
Exactly. Looking back, it's like, man, I was the smartest man ever.
Yeah.
But went to Mizzou, and I was actually my whole goal was to get into coaching. So I have always loved sports. I've always been a sports guy, still am to this day. And because I didn't play in college, the next thought was, hey, I'm going to be a coach. And so I was actually an undergrad student assistant on the Mizzou football team for three plus years, and really like to think that it was, I had a part to play in us making that turn.
Yeah.
But I think it was more of Chase Daniel, because it was the same time. Brad Smith, obviously one of the most decorated.
Was it the Tony Temple era?
Yeah, Tony T was down there.
Yeah.
We had some guys down there, and it was
That Michael Sam.
Yeah.
That guy had a motor on.
Michael was after me, but
Was he?
But we had Brad Smith at quarterback, and then Chase came in. Obviously, the offense was completely changing at that time. And it was just special, man. I mean, I was on the sideline. Everyone was like, "So you were the water boy?" And I'm like, "Listen, there was the water boy.
Of course, that's what
there
they're
was the
gonna say.
water boy, then me." Okay, so I was at least one rung up, but.
So you got to sit and film with them all.
Yeah.
Do all that.
We were breaking out. So I got to run our scout team. I was running like the offensive scout team, getting our guys like ready for whether we were playing Oklahoma State. I mean,
So you were watching film on the other team's offense.
exactly. Yep.
So let me ask you something. So let's say week 1 you're playing KU.
Yep.
All right.
I hate
And-
KU.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I hate
Just
it.
needed to put that in there.
I don't like them either.
Yeah.
I hate the Colts.
Hey, listen, this isn't about the Colts, buddy.
Okay, and then say week 2 it's Oklahoma.
Okay.
So during week 1,
Yep.
you have to be studying Oklahoma's offense.
Yeah. Now keep things in check. I was the undergrad student assistant, so it wasn't to the same degree that graduate assistants were doing, but we were in some ways, depending upon the GA, we were doing some of the work that they needed to be doing. But at the same time, I mean, this is Division I. We're still in the Big 12. I mean, yeah. So it was
How many weeks ahead are you preparing?
typically 2 to 3. 2 to 3, yeah, and then of course in the off, I mean, there's no off season in Division I, and that was also a really good opportunity for me to just see even, hey, is this really what I want to do? In terms of knowing, these guys they're not seeing their family, and you guys know the coaching carousel, the world. Like the Mizzou staff was unique in that they stayed pretty tight, and there wasn't a whole lot of turnover. Now that there's a whole nother conversation for why that could or couldn't be. But at any point, I mean, and the leash seems to be getting shorter and shorter with coaching, right? I mean, you used to get 3 years
Yeah.
because you need to get your guys and that kind of thing. And of course, the whole landscape has changed. But yeah, it was a special thing to be a part of for sure. My biggest thing at that point would have been standing opposite sideline of the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier. That was when we were in the Independence Bowl down in Shreveport, and would end up coming back to beat South Carolina. And so, I mean, I've got some great stories, that's for sure. And of course, that's kind of, what I've got in my back.
Well, and it's interesting that your desire, was to be a coach, and you still kind of are.
Yep. No, absolutely. My desire has always been to coach, teach, help people get better. And I mean, obviously, that's a huge part of coaching, man. You see potential in somebody, you see what they can't see, and you're trying to pull it out. You're trying to speak life into them. You're trying to encourage them. You're trying to get them across the line.
It has nothing to do with wins. It has nothing to do with winning games,
Yep.
And sometimes you get lost in X's and O's and wins and losses.
Sure.
But I'm fortunate enough to be a part of a coaching staff where someone is always there, spiritually sound enough to check you and say, let's remember what we're really trying to do here.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's it.
So, and we talked about that last night,
Yeah.
So it's nice to be a part of a staff like that, and relationships over wins type
Sure.
scenario.
Yep.
I don't think I could coach under any other circumstance.
Sure.
Because wins and losses, championship, it's fleeting. It's all fleeting. So
I will say it's always more fun to win, though.
Yes.
yeah, it is.
I think we can all agree, but
Yes.
you're 100% right.
It's way more fun to win.
Culture to me is always, man. I don't want to say culture is everything, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
The culture of a team, of an organization, of anything is so much more, because oftentimes when you have a good culture, you've got the right systems and the right things in place, and so you're doing the right things. And it's kind of like the whole philosophy of, if you fall in love with your process, the process is the point, right? And when you fall in love and you're doing the right things and you've got a great culture, it's like it takes care of itself.
Winning
Because
takes care of itself.
the wins end up coming, because
Right.
that's what I found. You like, again, I'm gonna sports is my natural lean. So you look at the Golden State Warriors, and in that era where they were winning they were stacking championships. You hear the culture was incredible, right? Now you could say, well, yeah, they're winning, but it's like no. They everyone knew their role, everyone knew their place, and they were committed to that, right? And we've all been around teams, organizations, et cetera, where it's like you've got like 5 guys who think they're the guy, and they and they just don't don't mesh. On paper, you're like, man, we got 5 dogs, but they all think they're the dog, and so then all of a sudden they can't piece it together. They can't make it work.
Right.
And so I think again, there's another conversation there, but I think that's part of the thing that I've seen or noticed.
Well, if you've ever been on a losing team, that's like you experienced a 1-8.
It wasn't a bad culture. It was just a down year and just lack of talent, and injuries plagued them.
Sure.
Plagued us that year.
But was it? You can't tell me that the same mentality goes into a 1-8 team as it does in a state championship.
No, you're
It's a
right. I mean,
different
there was
culture.
there was a culture shift that my class had to make. And it really wasn't just my class, it was the juniors as well. Like, excuse me, I should say that. So it was the class of 96 as well,
Yeah.
Those 2 classes had to really, really fight to change the culture of, what was going on up there, And it seemed to just change like overnight, right? Because
We had a coaching change, and then we had guys
Well, but what-
that came in that, like myself, you, Tommy, Michael, who had played together since 3rd grade.
Right. But what I'm saying is the culture shifted negatively overnight,
Yes, it did.
right? Because,
did.
from just because they were, playoffs, 1-8,
Yeah,
4-6.
yeah,
And then we finally junior 8-2, senior year, back to the playoffs, your year, back to the playoffs,
yeah.
So yeah, it takes time,
It does take time, and it's always weird like that. You got that one year where it's just like, what the hell happened? Everybody was riding the wave of the previous years, and the expectations were to win, but yet we come in and we didn't prepare the way we used to.
Well, and we thought we were just going to walk on the field and win.
It doesn't work
It
that way.
just doesn't work that way. So, MU, and so what did you end up majoring in?
Secondary education, social studies. So kind of the classic, hey, my fail safe, because the thought would have been, hey, I'm going to get a GA position. I'm going to, try to get right into college coaching. And so, if nothing else, I'd at least have my, my ability to go and teach PE or teach, social studies at a high school and coach high school, that kind of thing.
So going into college, was your main focus, I want to remain in athletics,
Yep.
and I want to remain in some sort of coaching role?
Yep. Yeah. That was the target.
That was the target.
The target was I was going to be a coach, So again, growing up, even thinking about different great coaches like Tony Dungy,
Yeah.
and different guys that I always looked up to, even like because I played basketball as well, and so there were guys like Dean Smith, and of course, as a leadership guy, you're reading the John Wooden stuff. Like,
Yeah.
there's just I just always loved the role of a coach, and that to me was like that's just felt like that's it.
So is basketball more of your love than football?
So it's funny because I was much better in high school at football, But basketball was like the love of my life. But as a 5'9" white kid, it wasn't going to be something that took me very far.
Yeah.
And so I still play basketball.
No, I know you. He plays with Link.
And-
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I still try to get up and down the court a little bit. And of course, now I got a 12-year-old that, he plays a little bit of hoop, and
Does he like basketball?
it's been fun. Yeah.
But he's a track guy too.
He does. Yeah. He's a little athlete. And so we'll see what happens. But
What's he like?
He
What's
plays.
his-
He plays. If you ask him, he would tell you he loves basketball.
So is Frankie George. That's his.
He
That's his,
loves basketball.
He loves
he's,
it.
He's really good at soccer.
Yeah, I thought he was
And-
playing
and,
soccer. player.
The kid can get around a track a little bit as
Yeah.
well. But
So your first love was basketball, yet you
Yep.
went to MU and
Yep.
fell into the football.
I did. Yeah.
So were you looking to go to MU to kind of go into the basketball realm, or was it always going to be, I'm going to go here because I think the intricacies of the game better fit me?
Yeah. It's honestly, it's kind of a crazy story because, and it involves Tony Temple. But I was at that time, and this is a whole nother level and part of just my own, I guess, journey in life. But I was in line waiting to get a fast food check.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in line, and this guy's in front of me, and the next thing you know, Tony Temple's walking by, and I've always just been, it's not that I don't know any kind of stranger, but I just mentioned something to this guy. I said, "Hey, oh, you know Tony T?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, actually, I'm a student assistant on the football team," and I was like, "No way." And what had happened was, like, literally a week before, I had just sent a cold email in to the football program and said, "Hey, listen, if there's anything that I could do, I'd love. I played some high school football. I'm very interested in coaching. If there's anything that could possibly be, an opening or an opportunity, I'd love to just be given a shot or talk to somebody, that kind of thing." And so then Joe Kinder, who went to Blue Springs, he played with who's the guy that played for the Niners for a minute? Brandon, I can't remember his last name, but anyways, Joe Kinder, he went and played football at Dartmouth, and then came back and was essentially, he was in law school, but he was a student assistant on the football team. So within a matter of like 10 days, I found myself in David Yost's office, who was the quarterback coach under Coach Pinkel, and next thing you know, it's spring football, and I'm getting up at 5 a.m. because we got practice, and so. It was kind of just this crazy deal, and in some ways I kind of fell into it. Like it was a situation where, I told him, I was like, "Hey, I sent an email," and he's like, "Oh yeah, those things get lost all the time." So it was just kind of a cool. I look at it even just as like God in His sovereignty, and just again, I'm one of those guys. I don't think things happen just by chance. I think that there's a lot of things that happen as a result of, again, just life and us being in the right place at the right time, and then we get to decide what we're going to make of that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of how it happened. So I did, and I still do, love basketball, but like I said, football for me, I was a little bit more successful in high school, and so it happened,
Yeah.
So then at some point in that 4 years,
Yep.
you kind of get just all of a sudden want to go into ministry.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, yes and no. I've grown up. I've got incredible parents. They've been pastors for over 40 years now, and so I've had a front row seat to church and to pastors and all of that. And I've seen everything. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. The thing that's been the most incredible is that I've got two parents who have maintained their character and their integrity, and they are who they say they are. And like anything in life, I mean, you've got, whether it's coaches, doctors, pastors, there are people that can say all the right things, but they're not necessarily doing the right things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there was just a lot of tension for me, because I would have said, even in my middle school, high school years, like there was like this kind of pull or call. I believe that there's a thing like that God can put inside of us, like a dream or a calling. And yet I wasn't in a place in my life to actually be pursuing that, because my own faith journey it's individual. I believe that for every person. Like, you don't, to use some cliches, like God doesn't have grandchildren. He has sons and He has daughters, right? So every person has the opportunity to respond to that call to the love of God. They get to respond, right? You don't ride the coattails of your mom or your dad or your grandpa or your aunt or your uncle. They may have a great faith that is an incredible example for you, but at the end of the day, you've got to make that decision for yourself. And so it was a result of honestly a really bad breakup, a girl that I had been dating for a while. And I'm at Mizzou. There's 28,000 people there, but this breakup happens, and I feel like I'm the only person on the planet. I'm alone. I feel like I've got no real friends. I've got no real close people in my group, in my circle, in my corner. And it was that was my come to Jesus moment, if you will. And it was in that moment where I really just called out to God and said, hey, like it's time. It's time for me to make this real. It's time for me to make this my own. Like I've been again, riding the coattails and kind of getting by, even being able to kind of do some of the right things, say some of the right things. But it wasn't until that moment where it really became my own. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so from there, things just slowly but surely started shifting. And it was pretty incredible. Even one of my, it seems foolish now just to but we all do it. We make these deals with God, or we tell God like, yo, if you're real, show me this, et cetera, et cetera. And what I love about God is that, man, he is so faithful. And he also, it's almost like, he'll even sometimes even, it's like in his, it says that the Bible says that it's kindness that leads us to turn, to essentially like turn the other direction. We're going one way, which is not the right way. And it's in his kindness. It's like, hey, I got something better for you. Come here. I want to show you something. Yeah. And so just even in terms of, the people, there were a couple guys on the football team that loved Jesus and were following him. And so just even some of those connections that happen as a result.
Did you ever go through a phase in your life where you were, let's say, just for lack of a better word, a prodigal?
Oh, for sure.
So talk to me, elaborate.
Yeah, man. Again, that was like growing up in a pastor's home. It was a fishbowl, right? Like everybody is looking, and the expectations that are put and set on you, fairly or unfairly, probably more unfairly. And here's been the blessing and the burden of for me. Like I can be an extremely petty person, and I can also be an extremely smart aleck person, and I have the ability to, for better words, just kind of like buck the system because I can, or because I know that that's going to be the thing that kind of like, it may create some waves or whatever. And of course, as a kid, as a teenager, even into your early 20s. Like the wisdom and maturity that's on display is usually pretty minimal. But I would say that there was definitely some of that. And even for me going to Mizzou and just, I was ready to get away. I know it was only, 2+ hours, but it was away. It was something where I was like, I'm not sticking around here. I'm not going to get nothing wrong with even Maryville or some of the other places that were a little bit closer. A lot of people I knew that were going there. I was kind of ready to make my own name, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so again, I think we all have a journey. We all have decisions that we make, and of course, we also have consequences we get to live with. But yeah, there was no doubt. I mean, I joined a fraternity. There were things that I did that by no means were my parents like over there, being cheerleaders, like, yeah, you're making the best decisions. It's like, but yeah, I was just kind of I was ready to do my own thing, and there's no doubt I made some really dumb decisions. Some of them I made the same time over and over again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I get it. Here, listen, no judgment here.
Yep.
So do you feel like for me, and I don't necessarily think this was so much for you, which may have been why you went a little bit further off the deep end than I did, and that's just, I mean, I'm not busting chops there. It just is what it is. But for me, there was always this tug. Yep. Like every bad decision I made, there was this self-loathing, which I didn't realize that at the time, but sure. it was the Holy Spirit saying, "This ain't you."
Yep.
Did you have that?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think what happened to me is I just was able to build enough of the ability to just I just got really callous towards it. So I it's almost kind of like I just was indignant to even though I knew because I knew like what you said, and that's where I look back even in just the to use a big word, but just even to like think about the sovereignty of God, which essentially is just like I believe that God is in control. I believe that ultimately he's big enough, he's strong enough, and he's good enough to hold it all in his hands. And it's in his kindness that he actually allowed for me to go through something, because there was some stuff that could have got me in a lot of trouble,
Oh,
like a lot of trouble.
yeah, no, yeah.
Like and because this is public, I don't know how much I want to talk about that. But at the same time, like, I mean, we've all been there. We've all done some really, really dumb things, right?
I could think of something that would have put you and I in jail for about 15 years.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
several things.
Yeah, well, for me, I could just think of one.
Yeah.
I'm probably looking at like 5 years, but hey,
Yeah.
again, we're not comparing things here. So I look back and I'm just like, man, like God spared me in that. Like there were some things that like I look back and I'm so grateful. I'm not grateful that I went through them, but I'm grateful that it didn't go a different way, right? And so yeah, I mean there's no doubt, but there were plenty of things that I was doing that like I knew, but it's like I think it's like, you're a kid when you're a kid, and sometimes you just don't know better. So I'm gonna blame a little bit of that on just immaturity, but then also just like it's possible to develop like just that hardness or that callous, like I don't care, I like I'm gonna do it anyways. Like
Yeah.
I made a lot of conscious bad decisions,
Yep.
so I definitely did that,
Yep.
and there was plenty of times where I was like, oh God, I don't ever want to do this again. I swear I'll never do it again.
Yeah, sure, for
The
sure.
next weekend, there you are, same thing.
Same thing. Yep.
So it takes time, but I do always remember, and I didn't realize what it was then, but the tug
Yep.
of
Yep.
hey, this isn't you.
Yep.
So
I love the way you say that, because I think, to speak to that for a moment, there's a lot of times when we can experience different things. We all experience feelings, right? We all experience like just all kinds of different things. But speaking to this topic specifically, it's kind of the difference between condemnation and conviction, right? Condemnation is going to make you feel shame. It's going to make you feel like you'll never be good enough. It makes
that's
you.
the devil,
That's the enemy. Conviction, it simply just means to be convinced that there's a better way.
right?
And conviction through the Holy Spirit is, hey, there's something better for you. And conviction is always going to point us back to the Father. It's always going to point us to God, right? Condemnation, we're going to go inward. We're going to think, we're not good enough. Like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, oh, remember when you made that deal with God last week and said you weren't going to do that? It's going to remind you of that. And so that's the difference. And that's what I always try to encourage and tell people, man. Listen, the Holy Spirit is so good and so kind. There's going to be things that happen. There's going to be consequences to our choices, for sure. But at the end of the day, God's grace, the scripture is clear. It says there's always more grace. So no matter what we experience, there's more grace. Now, that doesn't mean that there might not be real consequences to decisions that we make,
Yeah.
right? If I go out,
Something's hot, you're
if I
gonna
go
get burnt.
if I go get blitzed and get behind the car, get behind the wheel, and something happens, like
Yeah.
there's going to be real consequences to that. Now, does that mean that God can't forgive? He can't restore? Of course he can.
He could restore, but there's worldly
But
consequences.
exactly, there's going to be things that we still have to deal with that and that's sometimes where people get hung up, and it's like,
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, oh, I quit going to church. I just couldn't stand the guilt. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Here, there ain't a church. If you're going to a church that don't make you feel guilty,
for sure,
then you're probably going to the wrong church.
for sure.
Yeah.
No,
And I think
yeah.
that, like what you're speaking to is people being able to distinguish between guilt and shame.
Yeah, that's it.
And
That's big.
And it's and you have to really, like I even have a hard time, and I know the difference.
For sure.
So I have to sit there and really ponder and like, okay, what's the message and who's the messenger here?
For sure. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's really it takes a lot, It takes a lot of spiritual maturity,
Yep.
you know,
That's
to
good.
do it. And you know, I mean, it's all about constantly, in my opinion, seeking a relationship, because the more you seek the relationship, it's like the more you know him.
Yep.
And then you're like,
That's it.
well, I know this isn't coming from God.
Yep.
You know, I know he's not going to give me this message.
Yep.
You know, so, and, you know, whether that message, you know, how many times something could be bringing me fear. Well, I know that ain't God,
Yeah.
That's right.
you know.
Yep.
You know, I know that ain't God. So I know that's not real,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But you have to remind yourself of that. So, so you've described this moment to me where you kind of just picked the phone up one day and you called your dad and you were like, I want to get into ministry.
Yeah, that was, again, a journey for sure. But I actually called my mom.
Oh, was it your mom?
Yeah, I
Okay.
called my mom.
He's a mama's boy.
I'm a mama's boy, man. Yeah.
All boys, I think, are mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I called her, and of course, she probably, I mean, you know, I think the phone went quiet for about 10 seconds. I thought she had a heart attack. Thankfully, she didn't. But I just said, listen, Mom, I know you've been praying for me for a long time. And I know that clearly a lot of the decisions and the choices I've been making for the last 4+ years have been less than optimal. But I've had a heart change. I've had some things happen, and I can't give anyone else any credit other than this is the Lord. He has been so good and so kind, and there a transformation began to happen, you know. And the amazing thing is like, again, I think, you know, your environment matters, and so, you know, growing up with two parents who loved each other and loved the Lord, and you know, we're always speaking life and always planting those seeds and those types of things. I mean, it's amazing that I got to reap things that I really didn't deserve, you know, and yet here I am. So, you know, I knew some of the things that I needed to do immediately, and part of that was surrounding myself with some better people, surrounding myself with some people that were going in the same direction, surrounding myself with some people who were a little bit further down the road than I was in terms of, hey, you know, I think a mentor told me one time, you can either learn through wisdom or experience. One just costs you more. And it was like, man, that right there, I'm going to tattoo that on my brain, on my heart, everywhere, because I think that we do learn through both. But man, the more I can learn through wisdom and avoid some of the pitfalls and the traps that other people have had to experience, you know, and so that for me was it. I started getting connected. Got connected with the chaplains at the Mizzou on the football team.
So you're still in college when you make this.
Still in college, yeah, and
Senior year.
junior year.
Junior year. Okay.
So really starting to, you know, at that point it got a little bit dicey, because I'm like, all right, Lord, like I feel like, you know, there's always been this seed that was planted a long time ago in terms of calling and feeling like, hey, you know, ministry is the thing that I feel like, you know, God's created me for. And so then at the same time, now I'm here at Mizzou, and it's like, all right. And so that was a interesting time. And so I didn't make any rash decisions. I think it's like, you know, that's just life wisdom for anybody. It's like, hey, usually when you're in the middle of a storm, that's probably when you don't make any major decisions. You just hold on. You just keep holding on. Keep doing whatever you're doing, and let's let the water start to get a little bit, you know, let the storm pass, right?
Yeah.
And so even though, to use the language of storm, it's like it just was a time of like, there's just seemed like a lot was happening all at once. And so got like I said, the biggest anchor point was just getting around some other people and just really taking a closer audit at my friend group, and that was a big part of it. And so yeah, I ended up, you know, finishing at Mizzou, and then came back, and at that point I was just serving at our church. So at that point it wasn't you know, no job, no pay. Was doing a little bit of actual video. I was a videographer, making like decent money. It was almost, but it was like I was kind of like in transition, if you will.
So let me ask you this: you make this decision your junior year.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you make this decision, and there's a change in your behavior.
Yep.
How did that go with your friends?
Well, that's such a great point. Most of them, I'd say most of them respected it, even though it threw them. There were some that were like, "Oh, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if this lasts.
Right.
We'll see if this sticks." I'll tell you what the craziest thing for me was, because like I said, I was in a fraternity, and the craziest thing was the first wedding that I officiated was one of my fraternity brothers, and it was a matter of a guy who they didn't really have anybody that they knew, but they had heard through this guy that was like a year older. They had heard, they're like, well, O'Reilly, he's like a pastor, or he's like a priest or something now. And so that was like, you know, again, anytime you do something for the first time, it can be a little bit nerve wracking, especially a wedding. Cause now I've done, I don't even know how many weddings I've officiated, and I enjoy it. And it's fun. And it's great. But I don't think I've sweat more leading up to that moment. Cause not only is it the first time, not only is it a bunch of these fraternity brothers who I partied with and got rowdy with and all these different things, but at the same time, like, here we are. And so it was pretty special. It ended up being great, but man, I was a nervous wreck.
Sure.
And so that again, even that though, like that was a cool part of the story, like allowing God to use me in that way. And so sure enough, it's stuck, you know?
So when you come home, so let me ask you this. What kind of, how do I want to ask this question? Is there a certain type of education that you need to go through in order to be able to call yourself a pastor?
Yes and no. So we have a non-denominational church, and there are guys who, you know, have their masters of divinity. There's guys that have got, you know, a bachelor's in biblical studies and church leadership. There's guys that, so I know both ends of the spectrum. If you get into denominations, there can be different things that are established or things that are required. So to give you a little bit more of the story, came home, was serving. I felt in my heart that I knew I needed to pursue some biblical education. I didn't necessarily want to go to like a seminary. I didn't necessarily want to go to, you know, something that was going to be, again, real like heavy on. I'm going to sound almost foolish saying this. I wasn't necessarily looking for a super like heavy-handed education, in that I wanted to be a part of a Bible college that I would be able to also be connected to a local church at the same time. Mm-hmm. So a lot of guys, and again, nothing wrong with it. Everybody's got maybe their own path, but I know that there's a lot of guys that they go and they're super, super heavily educated. They got like super high-end education, which can be great, but then they have no real practical application when it comes to leading people, serving people, getting connected to a church. And so that can kind of be a little bit of a tension that sometimes they get through, and now they've got, you know, a master's, or they've got maybe even their doctorate, and yet they just, you know, it's a very, very like, it's just different. That's it. It's not right or wrong. It's just different.
Essentially, as you're going through Bible college, you also, it's basically like you're doing, you're studying, but you also have a practical application for
exactly
it.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like you're an intern at the same time as you're going through the school and the education.
So you did have some formal education.
Yeah. So I went out to a Bible college just outside Seattle. So
how long? How long?
It's a two-year program.
Okay. Is that why you travel to Seattle frequently?
Yeah. That's why now, man, like,
I love Seattle. You ever been?
I have not.
Oh,
but
so awesome.
I've seen some pictures of some golf courses up there.
It's gorgeous.
The Pacific Northwest
is
the Pacific Northwest, from basically July 4th to Labor Day, it is heaven, bro.
Yeah,
because it is like the temperature is perfect. Now 9 months out of the year, it's gray and kind of just overcast and whatever.
I was there in October, and it was unbelievable.
But everything's lush. That's the thing. Like, and it actually is beautiful because everything's green. And when those clouds break, man, I mean, you got Mount Rainier, you got the water.
Yeah,
it's pretty great. So we go back usually the 1st of August. That we got some great friends out there now. Like, some of our best friends in the world live out there. And so we take the kids back, and my son was born there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But part of that was that I came back, and at the time, I wasn't dating anybody, or you know, I mean, obviously I had a desire, but wasn't dating anybody. And then that's where Christy, that's where my wife and I, we met. after I came back from Mizzou before, and then we would end up getting married and then going out to Seattle for 2 years.
So at no time were you like, maybe I'll be a priest.
That one didn't cross through my mind. Yeah,
I feel called,
yeah,
but
yeah.
not to be,
No.
not the priesthood. It's all good.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, Holly,
Yeah.
but hey, I have some very dear friends who I love that are,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
I don't wrap my head around it. I mean, so, this thing. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Frank. If you could hear you, I can hear you.
Okay. So you get done with the 2 years, and then tell me the timeline. You get done. What year is it when you get done with your 2 years?
2012.
So the Rock's already open.
Yes, sir.
All right. So then, did you go to a different church first, or did you immediately go to the Rock?
Immediately came back to the Rock. Again, there's a lot of different things that happened getting to that place. When I got done with school, because of some other things that had happened, I was truly at this place of like, all right, God, whatever you have for us, we want to ultimately hear your voice on this, because there was part of me that was ready and willing to stay in Seattle because I had some opportunity there. And the other piece of the puzzle was, and I fought this for a long time, in terms of, again, I never wanted people to just, and part of this was immaturity, but I never wanted it to be like, oh yeah, that's Philip's son. Yeah, he's a pastor because his dad's a pastor.
Well, what's wrong with that? So there's people who are firemen because their dads are firemen.
Absolutely. Again, like I said, I credit some of that just to immaturity and my own, and also my own kind of like, I am, going to be my own man. I'm going to be like whatever. And so, there was just some of those things that I kind of wrestled with and whatnot. And, but at the end of the day, I just kind of said, all right, God, I'm going to make myself available. So whatever you want, I'm going to trust that you're going to lead me to the right thing. And so as it turned out, the Rock was looking for a youth pastor. And it's, again, funny how God works sometimes, because it's like what my mom always said, like, don't ever tell God you're never going to do something, because he's going to figure out how to get you into that exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so sure enough, I had nothing against youth pastors, but I just never thought that was going to be me. Like, I just thought like, you know what? I think I'm better with adults. I think I'm going to better engage with them. I like kids and that kind of thing, but I'm just not like a goofy dude. And most youth pastors kind of fit that mold a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, 7 years later, I was a youth pastor and, did it for 7 years. And, clearly looking back, I mean, there were a lot of things that obviously it was a great both training ground, and also just, I know that there were a lot of ways in which God used me and even the team and people that I was able to just help develop and bring around. And so, yeah.
So 7 years, you were a youth pastor for 7 years?
Yep.
And then transitioned into what role?
I went straight from youth pastor to the executive pastor role.
Got it.
And
Who was
so-
executive pastor prior to you? Or was there?
Yeah. His name was Kevin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and what church did he end up going to? I don't even remember.
You know what? I don't know exactly where he went. I think it was somewhere in the city, but yeah.
Good.
So we may have to cut here because I'm going to ask J.O. a question, and I don't know if you want to talk about it or not.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to look at the time. It's 40. It's okay. Just so I can make a note if we do want to cut the question. You had dealt with some tragedy.
Yep.
And do you not want to speak to that or speak about it? Or
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share anything that I mean, yeah.
okay. I didn't want to catch you off guard with a question.
I told him I was going to ask him.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, then we can.
See, if you need to communicate with me a little bit more.
Well, I guess you should have. I guess I could have text messaged you.
No, I mean, because like for me, I'm interested to hear, because I know, I honestly, I know bits and pieces of the story.
Sure.
I don't know the whole ins and outs of everything.
Yep.
But I'm just interested in how you overcome it.
Yep.
And
What God
and
did
God's
through-
role in
yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
so
I just didn't want to ask a question if.
Oh, no, you're great.
If we didn't want to talk about it.
so
Okay, we could pick back up. There's just there'll be a little cut.
oh, they don't need to cut it. Who cares? It's
Okay.
raw, Drew. It's raw.
Or raw. Yeah.
So anyway, so walk us through what happened.
So You're talking about so there's a couple things here. When I came back from Mizzou, there was a window there. I met Christy within about 3 or 4 months. Christy and I are set up. So my now wife, we were set up by one of my best friends in high school. Went and played baseball at Northwest. He was dating a girl that is a professing atheist, right? She was great friends with Christy, and basically said, "Hey, I got this guy, this real religious guy. I think you might like him."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that's the worst. That's like the worst like preface ever. Could we kind of like at least say something like, he's not the tallest guy, but he's not the shortest guy, and he does like sports, that kind of thing, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we get set up, and we go on our first date. We went down to McCoy's in Westport. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. But 12 days later, her mom would pass away from cancer. So at 48 years old, her mom passes away. At the time, Christy, I want to say, was 22, something like that. So she loses her mom. And of course, I'm a 22, 23-year-old kid. I have not a ton of life experience. I know a lot of people that have been firsthand, have dealt with people that have lost their life or have dealt with cancer. I haven't. So, but what I did know was that I was interested in this girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that there were going to be some things that I'm just going to keep showing up. Like, that's the only thing that I knew. I'm just going to keep showing up. So we start dating. We keep dating. We date for 8 months. Right? We date for 8 months. I'm thinking to myself, this is the girl. I'm going to marry this girl. Ask her dad. I talk to my dad, get some wisdom. 6 months after that, so 14 months all in, we get married. We get married on June 28th, 2008. August 23rd, so two months, just under 2 months after we get married. This is going to date me. We were living in apartments just outside Parkville. We had gone and played putt-putt golf in Parkville.
Yeah.
Still there.
Yeah, I know.
The next spot isn't there anymore because it's Blockbuster Video.
Yeah.
We went to Blockbuster Video, rented a movie, don't even remember what movie, getting on the highway as we're merging in.
Christy was with you.
Christy's with me in the car. A 14-year-old kid decides he's going to cross the highway. He's going to cross from AMC Barry Woods 24 to the McDonald's.
Hold on. I'm trying to think where you're at. AMC 24 is on Berry Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the McDonald's. So you were on Berry Road.
So we're on Berry Road. We're merging onto I-29 South.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
So we're merging onto I-29 South, and a 14-year-old boy would cross the 3 lanes on I-29 going northbound, and would attempt to cross southbound, and our car would hit him, and 3 days later he would pass away, and that took me that sent me to a real tailspin. No embellishment in the sense of 13 months of the darkest tenure of my life.
Yeah.
It was something, and of course, this is also, keep in mind the timeline. I've come home from Mizzou. I'm now pursuing the thing that I feel like God's put in my heart, the calling that I have in my life. I meet this girl, we get married, and then this happens.
Yeah.
And it sucked everything out of me. It sucked everything out of me. And
so
yeah.
Were you ever able to, and I don't even know, did you ever get to, was part of your grieving process, did you get to talk to his parents, anything like that?
Yeah, man. So again, that was pretty incredible. Like I said before, my parents have been in ministry for a long time. My dad was a youth pastor, I think, for like 11 years. And believe it or not, the parents of the boy had been a part of his youth group at one point, and her parents, so the grandparents of the boy, were a part of the church.
Oh.
So
Part of
the church that my dad was a pastor at.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. And so, again, from a legal standpoint, it was that was the first step in the whole thing, because, clearly, thank God, there had been no, Christy and I, we hadn't been drinking. Everything was clean and clear from that standpoint.
It was just an accident.
This was just a 14-year-old kid that made arguably the worst decision of his life.
Yeah.
And so thankfully that was clear, right? There was nothing there. And yet at the same time, the weight of what I was experiencing going through is almost kind of like none of that even mattered to me. And yet that was clear. And then it was over the course of a, few months where the mom and even the grandparents would end up like offering their just, hey, we want you to know, like, we're so sorry that this happened to you. Which was, I mean, again, that's a gift.
It's big.
Yeah.
Like that's something that, they didn't have to do that.
No.
They didn't, even though there was no ill will, there was nothing on my end aside from just simply I'm merging and I was going fast enough. There's nothing that I could do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was no doubt the darkest. And so again, if you're keeping track with the timeline, Christy and I, we just got married. And it's not like we had this long dating relationship. So we're still getting to know each other. We're still getting to so I tell people I do a lot of premarital counseling and just marriage counseling. But premarital, I always am asking so how long have you dated? How long has this, been happening? And my natural go-to is hey, listen, short dating and short, I like short engagements because I think there's wisdom there. But I think it takes some time. If nothing else, give it 4 seasons. So if you're looking for a spouse, give it 4 seasons. Let's see how they are in the fall, winter, spring, summer, and then let's go from there. It's not to say that you can't date for a short time and just know, but there's going to be some things that you learn once you're married that you could have maybe learned prior to, and I think it's just helpful. I think wisdom says, hey, so that's my little premarital, but there's just a ton of things, and even so to think about the fact that our marriage essentially was built on two different traumatic events.
Yeah.
Her mom passing away, and then this happens. And so when I tell people today, because we're on Friday, we're going to be hitting 16 years being married.
Yeah.
I tell people it truly is the grace of God that we got through the first year, because there was a lot of crying from both of our sides, mostly hers. My first year was just completely numb. I was completely numb.
Yeah.
I was essentially a zombie, just kind of walking through life, and just kind of, again, I was doing some videography work at the time, which was the perfect job for me because I basically was like a zombie could have done it, because I'm doing video work for these attorneys. I'm a videographer at depositions. So I'm just hey, we're on the record, the date is blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even looking back then, it's God was taking care of me, because I had to step back because I was serving at the church. I wasn't being paid. I wasn't, I was just serving there, but I had to take a step back because I literally had just everything got just completely ripped out from the inside.
Yeah, you had limited capacity at the time, and so he put you in a situation. God put you in a situation to where you could operate in a limited capacity and start healing from because there's obviously trauma that's associated with anything like that. And people don't understand PTSD, but best way I can describe it is when you get something in your head, you see you go through a tragedy, and it captures your thought process repeatedly. And in everything you do, there's constant reminder of it. And you're like, why is this coming up now? Why am I continuing to see whether it's or feel the emotion, or whether it's have repeated images in your head? It's one of those things that when you deal with that stuff, you've got to create space for yourself in order to heal. What did you notice? Obviously, it's a blessing that the family reached out to you to say, "Hey, I'm sorry this happened to you." But what did you notice God doing in that time?
Well, I want to ask this question differently.
Okay,
because I got an idea. Because one thing, because did you ever take Discover Freedom?
Yeah, I've gone through it twice.
That means you were really bound.
Yeah, I probably could go.
I could probably go through.
I probably go through it 3 or 4 times.
So my question is, because I know one thing that I realized, because I've had some tragedies happen to me. Anytime and Discover Freedom helped me realize this, but you know this tragedy happens, and the devil's going to inject that lie somewhere. Right. And so what was the lie? And how, as you would say, what you were getting ready to ask, how did God liberate you from that?
That's great.
Which would ultimately, because until you get rid of that lie, you were going to be bound and stuck where you were at.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yep. That's a great question. I think, the biggest thing for me was that it was my fault. That was the biggest thing. I couldn't get over the fact that was, even though, again, things had been, hey, legally nothing here, but it's like there's a 14-year-old kid that isn't here anymore.
Yeah.
And I was driving, and so that was the biggest one that I couldn't forgive myself. But also I was pissed, man. I was really mad at God
Yeah.
for, and it was through I believe that God speaks through so many different ways. I think he speaks through people. He speaks obviously through his word. But I remember a guy telling me, like, hey, I want you to know that God, he didn't cause this, but he did allow it. And that changed my perspective. Not in the moment, but it was like a domino that, like, okay, I can start, I can get around that. Like because I just, my theology wise, I don't believe, there's not anything in me that believe that God caused that to happen.
Yeah.
But in God's sovereignty, he did allow it. Just as he allows a lot of things that I personally wouldn't allow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, buddy, listen.
100%.
but thank
Believe
God,
me, I
I'm
get
not
it.
God, because I'm not good enough. I don't have enough capacity, and
Yeah.
so I think that was a bit of a turning point for me, and so yeah, it even just and I also realized that, like, it was in those moments where, like, he allows us to go through things because not because they're necessarily enjoyable, but they're for our good. So when we keep that perspective in its proper place, because the word says that he'll work all things together for our good,
Yeah.
for his glory, for our good. And so there's things that we don't necessarily enjoy, but if we will understand and keep the proper perspective on it, we can know that, oh wait, this is for our good. So there's something that he wants to work in us, and there may be some things he wants to work out of us.
Yeah.
Because it's for our good. And so that's just where that's what I believe. That's where, and so even like looking back, and that's also the power of perspective. Because in the moment, you don't feel that, you
you're
don't
just-
sense that, you're just mad.
Yeah.
Well, you're also you're blinded by your grief.
Exactly.
I mean, because it's
Which
just
is a real thing.
I mean, it's
and that's
powerful.
That's
I mean,
that's the thing that I think a lot of times people, especially guys, we just want to like grit our way through it. But the worst thing that could ever happen to us is if we get through something, but we don't learn anything through it.
Yeah.
Right? You get through it, but there's nothing that you've actually learned or that's been developed or worked into you.
what probably happened in that situation is you became calloused where you need to be tender.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, that because that happened to me.
That's right.
And then when something else happened,
Yep.
it literally floored me.
Yeah. That's
You
it.
know what I mean?
That's it.
So, and at that point was when I finally was like, okay, I need to now deal with this.
Yep.
Compounded with this, because I just never dealt with
Yep.
the first scenario first. I just became calloused.
That's it. Yep.
And
I think that's maybe you've heard this illustration or analogy before, but it's the difference between a wound and a scar, right?
right.
A wound is something that, man, if you keep picking at it, it's never going to heal.
Yeah.
Like, so every time it's touched, you buck up.
Yeah.
So you get triggered or whatever. But a scar, I got a couple scars. I got a scar right here. I got a scar on both sides. I got stitches when I was a kid. Like, I can hit that, touch that, do that, and it's like it's a reminder of that thing. But it's not this open wound where I'm bleeding all over everybody, or like I've never let it heal.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's even like what you talked about with Discover Freedom. There's so many areas in our life. I mean, whether you're 14 or whether you're 44 or you're 64, if you don't deal with those things, if you don't allow the Lord to come in and heal those things, you could be dealing with the same thing year after year after year until you're done. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So I think that was a big thing. But even to back to the PTSD thing, that was a real eye opener for me, because again, I've grown up. I grew up in high school, grew up in college, always had a lot of friends, played sports, was never one of those like weird, like, whatever, always on the fringe of society type people.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book on Columbine, of all things. And I'm reading this book, and of course, if you know, we're all old enough to know Columbine High School was Colorado,
Yeah.
one of the first major school shootings. And I'm reading through it, and I'm like, what the all the symptoms and all the things that these teachers and these students that survived this school shooting that they have. They're zombies, absence of emotion, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I have. And that's when I actually realized that I had PTSD from what had happened. I didn't get behind the wheel for about 5 months. I didn't drive at night for almost 9 months.
Yeah.
Because
Really?
I couldn't do it. And so, you know, again, there's these are real things. It's like you don't just get to fake it till you make it, or you know, just a magic bullet.
Rubbing dirt on it and get it
Exactly.
back out there, it ain't gonna do it.
It takes time. Like, I mean, it takes time, and I believe the right people around, and you know, there were a lot of different factors that went in, but I do remember I was actually sitting. I can remember exactly where I was, and it was about 13 months in, and that again, there's some people that just kind of came into my world. I believe the Lord directed them into my world. And one of them, he sent me an email, and he just said, listen, man, people are missing out as a result of you not walking in the calling that God's placed in your life. And that was like, oh, it just hit different.
Yeah.
That email was like, in some ways, it was like the spark that for me, okay, it was like the starter on, like, you know, like a gas fireplace or whatever, where it's like, okay, now here, let's throw a little bit on here, and let's just see what could happen. So I remember Christy and I were living downtown in a condo, like loft condo thing, renting, and I called her and I said, listen, I know that I need you to be sitting down, but I think that I'm going to go to school. I think I'm ready to go to Bible college. Because at that point, I still hadn't done that. So that's what, again, ended up leading us to Seattle. Because Christy and I...
So Seattle happened. So this happened prior to Seattle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry. So that's why I was like trying to, you know...
Give us a good framework of. So you said you were back here at 22.
Mm-hmm.
You had met Christy,
Yeah.
and her mother had passed. How far was it from this
Yeah.
incident?
Yeah, so her mom would have passed away in 2007. Yeah, 2007. And then we would get married in 2008.
Okay.
So June 28th, 2008. And then August 23rd of 2008 is when basically it all went dark.
Oh, wow. That's
Right.
very, very
Yeah.
close.
When I say bang, bang, trauma, these are the foundation, these are the pillars
Yeah.
that things are established on. And then it wouldn't be until 2010. So it was a couple trips around the sun.
Yeah.
And then 2010 we would head out to
To Seattle.
Seattle, and then in 2012 that's when Miles would be born in May, and then we would come back.
Now how did this affect your marriage?
Oh, how did it not?
Yeah.
I mean, it like I said, it was the first year. It was a lot of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of tears. It was a lot of I was angry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the things.
And you can't show her any affection because,
Well,
I mean,
and
you
also
just-
Christy's dealing with it too because she was there.
That was the part that it took me longer than it should have, because again, I'm going inward. I think a lot of us we have a tendency to be pretty selfish and just naturally lean that way.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like at some point somebody was like, hey, you do realize like she was in the car too, right? Like she also experienced, she wasn't driving, but she experienced the same thing
Yeah.
that you did. And that was like a, man, did I do something?
Nah, that thing.
You hit it. Yeah, you're good.
You're fine.
That was one of those things where, just being able to get to that place was actually part of
And
the
you were-
healing process as well.
Well, yeah, because you were in no position to comfort her.
Correct.
You just couldn't do it. There's no way you could have it. I mean, getting to that point would have been, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, because I would have 100% been like, okay, I have to fix me somehow before I
For
could
sure.
deal with you.
That's it, man. Yep.
You know, and that's, oh, Man, that's brutal. That is definitely
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah,
Did you guys have to go through some counseling?
We did, yeah. And you know, even our own marriage journey has been one of you know, like any marriage. Marriage is work. And so sometimes it's ups, it's downs, it's all around and so but us, I knew that there were multiple things happening. Like even when I got back to that place of like, all right, I'm going to go to Bible college. I'm going to get back in alignment with what I believe God's wanting me to do. We knew that there was like a figurative. We had to get out of the season that we were in. We knew that we will do anything to get out. We also felt like it was going to be a literal move. And so that's when we started like just exploring some options. I mean, I knew more or less what I was wanting. Again, 2-year Bible college, something that I could again get some education, but also have some practical application at the same time. And then we just started looking at some different spots. And neither one of us had ever been to Seattle. And so even in that, man, we were kind of on an island. If you've been to Seattle, it's not like the Midwest and where it's like, you know, people just passing through. Like typically they're on their way to Canada or they're going on an Alaskan cruise and they're porting out of there, you know, that kind of thing. So just even for us, we didn't have like anybody that we knew. And so it was just a great season for us where we really had to just lean into each other. And so there was some just even restoration and some things that were in some ways being restored, but other ways just being built for the first time.
Yeah.
Because there was just so much stuff. That's the Christian way of saying, you know, like that we had to kind of just walk through, navigate, kind of try to wrap our hearts and our minds around. And so
was the email your aha moment?
Yeah, that was a big part of it. And then I was also at the same time reading a book titled what's the name of it? A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. It's by Donald Miller. And the whole like point of the story is that every great story has these different moments. Every great story that any of us have ever watched, read, lived, it's like these moments of you know, an antagonist, a protagonist, like all these different, there's like arc, there's like these different things. There's like a moment when the hero has to deal with like adversity. So you're going to find out what you're made of type of thing. And Donald Miller's a great author. He's written a number of books. And for me, it was like, okay, well, I'm still living, I'm still breathing. So God's not done with me. So this is a part of my story. And now I get to decide how I'm going to walk through, how I'm going to navigate it, you know? And so again, hindsight, it's like, I didn't realize how many people get hit on the highway. I mean, you know, as a firefighter, you probably are very well aware.
I've never paid attention to it. Is it a lot?
I mean, there's more than you would think.
Exactly. And then that's the deal, right? For me, at that point, I assumed I was the only person that had ever happened to.
Yeah.
But then, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you don't have context for something until you've experienced. It's like any of us, like once you have lost somebody that like from cancer, like you could go into a room and there could be 20 people in there and another person says, yeah, I have, you immediately have a bond. Like there's something that the two of you have experienced that unfortunately can't be taken away from you, and you immediately bond or you connect over that or have the ability to.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now for me, being able to sit across from some of these truck drivers or other people that have hit people and as a result, those people have died. It's like, I can just sit with them. And I can say, listen, I literally know exactly what you're walking through.
Yeah.
You can empathize.
Yeah.
Not just
It gave me an empathy for people. And it also gave me an empathy for people that have absolutely just brutal anxiety, who have been maybe dealing with depression, who have been dealing all these things that I honestly had never really experienced before.
Anxiety for me, I'm not scared of a lot of stuff.
Sure.
I'm terrified of anxiety.
Sure. It can be crippling.
It's so bad.
Yep.
But I also, like, for me, and you know, a lot of people will laugh when I say this, but I also recognize that it's completely demonic.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, because I remember having like a 3-week bout of anxiety that would just kind of come and go. And I remember it hit me real hard one morning, And I got to my office early. I was having terrible anxiety, couldn't get out of my own head. And I remember I got one of those AirX pads, and I put it on the ground, and I just got on my knees. And I remember praying, and I remember God taking it from me. And I literally felt like he was like pulling physically something out of my body to where when I got done, I was just exhausted.
Well, yep.
You know, so I think trying to fight depression and anxiety with medicine only, I think that's why people lose that battle.
Sure.
I really truly
Sure,
believe
sure,
that.
sure. Yeah.
You know, I don't think you can fight it with just medicine.
Yep.
You know, like, because here, mine, I got so bad. If somebody would have said, "Here, take this heroin, anxiety will go away real fast," I'd have done it.
Sure.
I mean, because I remember thinking to myself, I could see how people can commit suicide over this.
Yep.
It was so bad. So I have an empathy for that too. And I think the reason why it was happening to me, because I would look at patients' past medical history.
Sure.
And I'd see depression, anxiety, and I'd be like, fuck, here we go. You know, this isn't going to be a good rehab candidate. And I would immediately go into it with a bad attitude. But then after I experienced it, when I seen that, I would address it. And I would sit with them and I would talk to them and I would ask them, you know, how's that going? How are you doing with that? Because now I know nothing's getting better until that's fixed.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't care if it's back pain, if it's shoulder pain, if it's chronic headaches, whatever it is, nothing is getting better until you get rid of that.
I think you can argue that anxiety could be a source of illness. And not only just from the sense that you feel the anxiety, but for physical ailments, you know, back pain, headaches, knee,
Here,
all that, you know.
Nina died, and I got crippling back pain within 2 days. Crippling. That landed me in the hospital.
Yeah.
You know, I could, like, the whole entire time at the wake, I couldn't even breathe. My back was hurting so bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I remember I got in the shower. I barely bent over to put soap on my thigh, and it locked.
Wow.
It completely locked up. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything. And then the day after Nina's funeral, I'm in the hospital with back pain. Blood pressure, 180 over 110.
I remember that. I remember you were in the hospital.
And finally, the doctor, they kept taking it and they kept taking it, which kept giving me more anxiety because it kept going up. And I'm like, I'm going to have a damn stroke. And then Mama Bear came in. She was in no mood for anything, taking zero shit, and just came in and said, give him something now. And the lady came in and she IV'd me, and and here's the funny thing. I remember this. She took my blood pressure right before she gave me the medicine, and she took the blood pressure and it immediately started to drop. And that's when I knew that my blood pressure issue was psychosocial, because in my head I knew help was on the way.
Right.
You know what I mean? I knew she was getting ready to give me something and help was on the way. She gave me the Versed, and literally within 30 seconds, my blood pressure was 110 over 70. You know, so I could see where, you know, these psychosomatic things, I mean, it affects you physically big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And I truly believe, you know, the reason why people deal with it on such a chronic level is they don't understand the spiritual side to it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think, you know, again, my belief is that God can heal through both miracle and medicine, right? And oftentimes it's both, right? Because I think that there's times, and I'll just be honest, there's been preachers or pastors or whatever that have just, you know, they try to make everything spiritual. And I do believe that there's a massive, but God even makes it so clear we're mind, body, and spirit. So there is a physical body he's given us.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things that you don't just pray away. Like it's pray and oftentimes.
Yeah.
It's pray and then do, or pray and what, you know, fill in the blank. And so I think that's a piece that, like, I just want to keep that posture so open and transparent to people. It's like, you know what, there's going to be some people that actually God wants to use. Maybe it's a counselor, maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's a, you know, a spiritual, you know, guide that is going to kind of help walk you and navigate you through, like a guide would when you're going through terrain or an area that you've never been before. You need a guide. You need somebody like maybe a coach they've been through it, they've seen it, so they're gonna be there.
And when your coach has got the fear in his eyes, you're like,
Yeah. That's not, you don't want that.
yeah, but you're right.
Because you know, it's like, you don't believe what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that's the other thing that again, in just being able to look back and see, because there's, like I said, when you've experienced something, nobody can take it away from you. So like for me, like I've experienced the grace of God. I know what the tangible grace of God. I don't care what you say, or I don't even care who you are, how much weight you have. Maybe you're a mentor in my life, pastor in my life. But if all of a sudden they went sideways, it wouldn't change what I know. It wouldn't change the experience that I've had.
Which is sometimes the beauty of tragedy.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's the beauty of tragedy, because you can, when you're sinking and the only thing that's above water is your nostrils, and all of a sudden he pulls you out, you can get on your knees and raise your hands and do it unashamed.
Yep.
Because you're like, there's no way I'm denying that.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm denying that. Not after, and for me, it's happened multiple times. But man, I'll tell you right now, and maybe the circumstance doesn't change. Maybe your perspective does.
That's it.
You know, and sometimes the circumstances do change. You know, sometimes you're fortunate enough for the circumstances to change. But when that happens, you have no problem getting on your knees and raising your hands and saying, listen, that's the King of Kings. It's the Lord of Lords. It's everything. He's my all. And I don't have a problem, telling you that, And I don't think I would have been able to do that had I not went through the shit that I went through.
Sure.
And had him pull me out of the stuff that I was in.
Yep.
Sometimes self-inflicted, sometimes just life happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but nonetheless, whether it's self-inflicted or not, he was there.
That's right.
So, do you, I guess the word is, do you ever have relapse?
Man, listen, I'm a human like everybody. So there's plenty of things that I still continue to maybe struggle with or have. But I think like anything, there are things that, as a believer, again, I'm talking to people that say, hey, I follow Jesus. My primary aim is to look more and more like him. That's the whole goal of being a Christian, is to grow in your spiritual maturity, to develop, to not look the same that you did. It's like the reality of like, God loves you so much. He loves you so much that he's not going to like allow you to stay the same person as he found you. So thinking about maturity, thinking about growth, right? To have that kind of mindset. There's things that used to really like trip me up, that still trip me up, but they don't trip me up as much as they used to. Does that make sense? So to say relapse, I don't know. I completely understand the question. I just think that it's a thing for me. Again, I know my proclivities. I know the things that it's like some guys, they may have, certain things that they like, certain vices or certain things that they naturally lean to. And so, again, I have some of those, but then there's other things that like, I already know, I've already answered on internally. Like if certain things were to be presented to me, I've already answered the question before it's being asked. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so I know that those things aren't going to be like a temptation to me. Right. And you can fill that blank in however you want.
Right.
Whether it's, women, or whether it's booze, or whether it's, gambling, like all these things that are so easily like we get entangled in. I already know my answer. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm still not like, oh, but I know better now.
I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate that I don't have a lot of the vices that I had from, 20 to 30.
Yeah.
I have zero temptation at all.
Wow. Yeah.
It's crazy. I have zero temptation, whether it's a woman, whether it's a drug, whether it's any of that. I do not have, and I don't know. I mean, I can only just say, You know, I'm blessed. I'm fortunate. I know there's plenty of people that do,
Sure.
but I'm just not.
I think vices, vices can be all consuming and could be a great source to distract you from actually dealing with the tragedy. And I think, once you get to a place where God's he's interceded and he spoke to you, you now have those coping mechanisms. So when tragedy comes your way again, which inevitably might not be to the same scale, but and tragedy ultimately will come your way, you've had those built-in coping mechanisms, and now those coping mechanisms are, you can come to a place to where you can get on your knees and say, you know what, I don't have the answers here, and I don't know what I don't even have the coping skills, but now my surrender is going to be my coping skill.
Well,
I'm going
and
to
like,
surrender it.
I speak to vices where I don't have temptation, but I do have, and I don't, like I said, I don't want to use the word relapse, but I do have, I guess we could say, the tragedies that have happened to me in my past do come back still, and they will haunt me still.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I guess I think that's natural, right? Like there's days where you're just like, I don't want to get out of bed today.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
Sure.
and luckily those days are few and far between, but it happens to me still.
Sure.
But I think that's natural.
Yeah.
You know,
I think so too. Again, we're human, so that there's going to be like it would be insane. I wouldn't trust anybody that said no. I've never had any kind of like sideways thought or what. Like, no, stop. You're not fooling anybody.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of certain things, again, like driving now at night, like there's things that, no, I'm fully confident. Like I don't have any kind of like, again, relapse in that regard and that kind of thing. I think the other piece, just talking about just big picture, I also have people, I've got some trusted friends that I actually am accountable to.
Yeah.
That have access to, different things, whether it's social media accounts, or that I can go to and I'm like, hey, listen, man, I was lingering too long here or whatever. And so, accountability is this big word. And the reality is that accountability is only as good as you're willing to be honest. So that's a big part of it. I think that's why part of it, I believe God's designed us for community. And so like having trusted friends and trusted people in our life has helped me build some of those disciplines, right? Because I think that's a lot of it. You're building discipline, and maybe the discipline turns into desire, but if nothing else, it turns into, when it's the right discipline and it's good discipline, it's going to create, just like anybody would start, when you start working out, you're not going to be, you're not going to get jacked like immediately. It's going to take time. You got to put the time in. You got to put the effort in. You got to put the hours in. And as you do that, well, then you start adding some weight on it, right?
right.
And so I think the same way in life, like it's like God, the things that He allows us to walk through, well, it's again for our good, and it's because, hey, it's this trajectory of up and to the right. Like I just believe that's God has different levels for us to go, and it's maturity. And an old preacher once said, different levels, new levels, new devils. And that can be a real thing.
Yeah.
But the good thing, the great thing is that as we are continuing to level up, if you will, to use that idea, God he's given us the strength. He's building in the strength, the things that we're walking through, the things that we're navigating. He's given us that strength to be able to take on those things. Because again, he is good in that way. And it's kind of like we talked about, he hasn't given us a spirit of fear. So any kind of fear, any kind of intimidation, any kind of anxiety, he hasn't given that to us. So if he's not giving it to me, I'm not going to receive it.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's like a gift. Like if you're going to give me a gift, I'll take the gift. I mean, assuming it's a gift that I want. Maybe it's not. Man, this analogy is
Just give me a receipt.
Yeah. If I got a gift receipt, you got a gift receipt for that. But like, thinking about that, that's a great way for me too. Like it's like if there's things like that God wants to give me, I want all of it.
Yeah.
I want all of it. If it's not Him, then I'm gonna hold tight, and I'm gonna through wisdom and discernment decide whether or not I want to receive that or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So yeah, you gotta. That's a real good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's definitely a real good way to put it, because it's something that I definitely still grapple with.
Sure. Absolutely.
But I am smart enough. I shouldn't say smart enough, but spiritually discerned enough to know,
Yep.
hey, let's go to the true north and say, okay,
Yep.
I know this
That's
is
it.
from you.
That's it. That's been such a helpful thing for me to know that feelings can be real, but it doesn't make them right.
Yeah.
Okay. So like that's a big thing, because so many times people are like, well, I feel this way. I feel that. Okay. Well, you may feel that way, and it could be a real feeling, but it doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
You could feel like your spouse doesn't love you.
Emotions lie to you.
Exactly. And so the same way with thoughts. Thoughts are constantly coming into our mind. Each of you have probably had 1,000 different thoughts in the last week about all kinds of different things. And thoughts are like trains, and our mind's the train station. And we get to decide if those thoughts are going to get to stop and take some real estate in our mind, or we're just going to let that thought keep
Pass
on
through.
going.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why scripture even says, like, we take every thought captive. And so when we do that, it gives me hope, because it means it's possible. Because scripture's not going to lay something out for us that's unattainable. It's there for our good. It's there for our benefit. Now we need the Holy Spirit, so we invite the Holy Spirit in, and we start. Hey, I need to discern. Is this thought from the Lord? Well, does it line up? Does it line up with God's word? Because if it doesn't, that means it's probably not from Him. It means it's probably from the enemy, who is wanting to steal and kill and destroy our life. And so those types of things, as you start to develop that, just like anything, you do it enough, you get more reps, you're going to get stronger in it. You're going to realize, oh, this is almost like natural. This is what used to take me, like everything in me, right? When it's like at the gym, somebody throwing up 135 that's been working out for a long time. Well, that's the thing that used to be the benchmark is now the warm up,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in the same way, we look back at life, and we realize, oh man, that at the time that felt like it was going to be the end of the world. Now, 10 years down the road, to a mature person who's developed and they look back and like, man, that was nothing.
Right.
That was like, I mean, that was a blip on the radar.
Yeah.
I think that train station analogy is great, because I think it also can maybe be a cue for, if you're letting every train stop in the train station, that's when anxiety is at its height, because you're focusing on every single thought instead of holding them captive.
That's it.
And that's a great analogy.
Well, and then they also give you another command, and I don't remember the exact verbiage of the verse, but it tells you what thoughts to take captive, right? And what things to actually meditate on, whatever's good, whatever's
Pure, whatever's
those are the thoughts that you need to really meditate on. And I think that, like, something that I try to do is, when I get like a negative thought in my head, start to meditate on the exact opposite.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And just remember, the acronym, fear is false evidence appearing real, but it can appear very real.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
It can appear very real.
Yep.
So where do you see you in the next 5-10 years? Do you see yourself eventually taking over the church when your dad retires? Do you see you guys, adding another campus? Do you see you guys maybe adding a school? Do you tell me what the ceiling is for the Rock?
Yeah, well, I think the ceiling in some ways is it's like, to be completely
Probably no ceiling.
transparent. Yeah, like I believe that anything that God wants to do, if we make ourselves available, He's capable of doing it. Mm-hmm. So that's, from a faith standpoint, that's where my posture is at. In terms of the next 5 to 10 years, I don't know exactly. I have some thoughts. I have some dreams and some things that I believe could happen.
Talk to me.
It's the same thing that I have when I coming in as a youth pastor. Is the same posture I have is like, okay, God, whatever you want to do in and through me, I'm going to keep my posture open. Mm-hmm. Now, I do believe, just real talk, the reality is that my dad is not getting any younger, like all of us. there is something to the possibility of hey, what's next for the Rock? The church, God's church, capital C church. We know that the gates of hell can't prevail. So we're working from that posture. What an amazing posture when you know you can't lose. And so thinking about that, thinking about the future, thinking about, okay, what's the best thing for the church? What's the best thing for all of that? We've started some conversations. We've started some dialogue about, okay, for so many years, I have, again, just total transparency. I've had my own wrestling matches with God about like what it is that I'm supposed to do, where it is I'm supposed to be, where all these different things. And sometimes I think, us as humans, we have this amazing ability to overthink. And so the thing that I've really tried to reframe and make sure that I maintain the proper perspective, because I think oftentimes we overthink, but we overthink all the ways it could go wrong. It's usually never like I'm overthinking all these great possibilities. Maybe you guys are better and different than me, but
You usually figure one possibility. This is the only way it could go. The success could be.
Exactly. Exactly. So I do know and do believe that God's put some things inside of me that if and when that position, opportunity, whatever you want to call it, arises, that I'll be able to step in and be faithful and lead well and take the church into the next season and take the church into the next place. And to be honest, maybe there could be some multiple sites. There could be some things. I don't want to get too far ahead.
I got you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know there's a lot of people in Kansas City that still have yet to get a revelation of Jesus. And for me, as a teacher, preacher, communicator, I'm going to do everything I can to keep preaching that message and keep living that reality. And we'll see what doors God wants to open and where He wants to take us.
Well, here, I truly believe that the church will continue to grow. Whether it's, number of attendees, whether it's another facility, whether it's any combination of the two of them.
Or expanded ministry.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and here, you guys you go to Haiti.
Yep.
Well, we haven't gone to Haiti because we haven't been able to travel there.
Yeah, there's a lot of just civil unrest there right now. But
where else?
A team just got back from Ghana. So
Ghana, and then
yep.
Your mom went to South Sudan with the team.
Yep.
Didn't she go regularly?
Yeah, same type of deal. I've actually had the privilege of going on that trip, and that for me is like always a thing. Like, we're Christian or not, I'm always like, I wish every American would just be able to go and just experience places like that, developing countries, etc., just to get a proper perspective of how good, in some ways, in a lot of ways, we have it.
First world problems.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I realize America has its own issues, man. There's plenty of that. But at the same time, man, we have so much at our disposal and so much at any moment. And you see the joy and you see just the way these people live and the reality that, like, yeah, stuff can be great, but it can also be nothing at all. And for people that have nothing, and for them to still live from this place of being content and being so grateful for very little, man, it's something I think just for
between you and Devin, there's 3 people that have stepped on foreign soil for a ministry, and every one of you guys say the same thing.
Yeah,
that everyone needs to do it.
Yeah,
it I'll say from my perspective, it absolutely changed.
And you went a couple times, didn't you?
Yeah, it absolutely changed a lot of things.
Yep.
In my life, and I had the privilege to hang out with your dad and your uncle.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy their company.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? And so it was, they get to speak into my life, and I just find both those two guys, it's good to hang out with a couple brothers, especially twins. They're hysterical. I'll be honest with you. I find them incredibly funny, but they also impart a great deal of wisdom. So for me, it was a shift in my perspective, and to be around some great spiritual leaders, it was just
for sure. Oh yeah,
I would love to go back and wish we could.
Yeah.
So
well, one day.
Yeah.
Just man, a lot going on over there though, in Haiti specifically.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you
Man.
very much. This has been awesome, and I don't think you need to me to wish you any luck, because I think, like you said, you're in a position where you can't fail.
Yeah.
You know, you guys with God on your side and what your mission is, you know, loving, serving, giving. You know, I don't see anything but the church growing. So, I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad it's changed me and Michelle for the better. It has mentored us. It has gotten us through some terrible stuff.
Yeah.
And it's given us a whole other family.
Yeah.
And I can't thank you guys enough for what you do.
Man, it's been an absolute privilege and honor to be a part of this. I love both you guys. I think you're both crazy in the best way possible. And
You're pretty right. Yeah, you're right.
Man, I also think what you just said, it's such a beautiful picture of what the church is supposed to be. It's a community of people, by no means perfect, because people are involved. And Scripture even alludes to the fact that the church is not, it's not a 5-star resort. It's not a hotel. It's more like a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And a hospital is a place that, most people don't necessarily, there's probably people that have their own, like, I don't want to go to a hospital, but the hospital is where you get healed. The hospital is where you go to talk to the doctor that has the prescription that you need, right? And in the same way, the great physician, I believe, the Lord, he has an answer to every problem that any of us will ever face. And so what does that mean? Through relationship, through conversation, through prayer, we go to him. And so it's not like he's the guy that's just holding it like back, and no, he just wants us to go to him and ask for it. And so that just is again, I love that we continue to hear stories of people who are finding healing, they're finding restoration, they're seeing and hearing about a real God who loves them, who has a desire to have a relationship with them. And not only that, he has the best for them.
Right.
And so even when we mess up time and time again, he still says, hey, let go of that thing you're holding on to, because I have something better for you.
Right.
And then that's just it, man. And then church in action, serving people, loving people, living a generous life, looking for ways to just, again, share the love of Jesus. So
Now, if somebody wants to find the Rock of KC, what's the best way to find you online, social media, all that good stuff?
rockofkc.com. We're in Kansas City. We're the northernmost part of Kansas City proper, right by our beautiful new airport. We actually have a backdoor entrance to the airport, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah,
little bat cave. We're on social media. We got our YouTube, Spotify, all those types of things. So podcasts and teachings are all out there.
What are the service times?
We Saturday night and then Sunday at 9 and 10:45. So we hit those 3 times, and as of now, those are where we're at. Maybe we'll add more. Maybe not. We'll see.
I remember you guys added a 12 or 12:30 on Sunday.
Yeah, that 12:30 was like a zombie service.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. No disrespect to anybody that went to that service, but it was like the hangry service. People were like, and so for us, again, because a huge part of the weekend is volunteers, it just got to the point where, it was the lightest of all the services attended, and it was just a really big toll on a lot of people. So
I like that Saturday night. That's my favorite thing to do, is go to church on Saturday night and go eat.
Yep.
But I've been, life gets in the way, so we've been having to go on Sunday. But
I just want to say that the Rock's got a great Rock Kids, great youth ministry, great teen ministry with Compel.
Yep. Yeah.
They have a women's ministry, and they have a men's ministry, and they've really hit on all points. And it's a welcoming place that gives you not only a place where you can go to service and hear a message, but also gives you tools to practically apply to your life, and programs that you can kind of sink your teeth into, that kind of can walk you through as you develop in your faith. And that's one thing that I'll say that the Rock has been great.
Yeah.
And if you think that you're too far gone, to attend, just know that they let me and Andrew go.
Yeah.
There it is, man. We might put that on the website.
Yeah, exactly.
Might put that on the website.
They let me and Andrew go, and they let us come back.
Yeah, let's come back.
Right. No, that's it.
Right.
I love it.
All right, J.O., thanks so much, man.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.